Hey everybody, Mark from Northeast Bass Fishing, and got these clips edited for you guys from last Thursday. I was out fishing, and in the morning I started throwing some topwater. Nothing much going on. Kind of fished some of the shoreline, some of the shady areas, and the weeds, and then I started throwing a chatterbait. And of course, the way it's been lately, the minute I started throwing the chatterbait, I started getting bit. So the first one, that was the first one there, a little guy, and then right after that, I catch this nice one. Now, this fish probably, I didn't weigh anything when I was there the other day, but this probably would have been a 5 pound bass if he didn't have a skinny gut, because he had a huge mouth, but he was just kind of thin. So I would think he was probably, once he, fills up, he'll be a big fish, but he was long and skinny, but he had a big mouth. So this was a good fish right here. I would estimate, even in his skinny state of not eating much this summer, he's probably still, close to 4. But it was a nice fish. He really hit that chatterbait hard. And I still got to do a better job of showing you guys the fish after I catch them on here. Some of them I do a pretty good job. Some of them a little. I got to do a better job of showing to this camera after I catch him. But you can see he's a nice one. He's just got, I had to hold him up a little better. But then I started working it, and I was working around this shoreline. And if you can kind of see those patches of weeds, I was kind of targeting those and throwing it up towards them. And that's where the fish would come out of, which would make sense. And I went up catching a few more, throwing the chatterbait at this time of the day. It's probably, 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning at this point. A couple, these ones aren't huge. That first one that got off wasn't big. This guy's just a little keeper that got off right next to the boat. And I'm just throwing that 1/2 ounce jackhammer, white and chartreuse. I got a chartreuse Kalen's grub as my trailer, which you guys know I like to throw as a trailer. And I just kept working the shoreline, and I'm throwing it right up next to those little clumps of weeds along the shoreline. I tried frogging them, nothing. I would flip some of them, nothing really. They really just wanted that reaction bite, I guess, of that chatterbait in the morning. Topwater was not, fish were actually busting out, earlier in the morning, but I was throwing topwater stuff and getting nothing. But the chatterbait always seems to produce, when these weedy lakes, the fish are always ready to hit. And even when it's like not a windy day, at this point of the day, it did get a little windy later on. But even when it's not windy out, that vibration from that chatterbait is enough to get them going. And they're hitting it pretty good. So there's a little keeper there. And that was, I think, it for the chatterbait bite for a little while. I did keep working this shoreline. And as you can see, like straight ahead there is where it's a really good weedy area where I'm going to start throwing the frog around a little bit and catch some decent ones doing that. So here I am throwing that, and that's that new toad from Fat Pack Baits, and it's the first time I've thrown it. And what I like about it now that I've used it a little bit is it's a little heavier than like the Zoom. The Zoom horny toad and the other ones. It's a little heavier plastic. Unfortunately, I turned the boat just as he was hitting, so it didn't get to see quite the complete bite, but still a good fish. Still a good bite. And that's a 4/0 EWG, heavy wire hook that I like to use when I throw those frogs. And this was a good fish. This was another solid chunk. Came up and nailed it. I usually do pretty well in this area, and there you can see that Fat Pat Baits toad. I will put links to all these baits that I used. But it was pretty much chatterbait, frog, jig. And I think I did catch a decent fish on a Ned later on. And here I am, I'm working the end of the lake here. You can see it's shallow. You can see the weeds there. It's only a foot or two deep. And I'm just kind of chucking that toad around. This one hit it just as it hit the water. He didn't even hit it like by one of those weed clumps. He was just it's almost like I must have thrown it right where he was sitting. Because the minute that bait hit the water, he hit it and got it good. And I always worry, like when I've got so much confidence in the horny toad that when I try a different frog, I'm always, when I'm not sure about it till I catch one. Is that plastic going to be too heavy? Am I going to get a good hook set? And no problem. Got good hook sets on every one of them that bit. And another decent one right there. You can see that Fat Pack Baits toad right there. And that, I believe, and he got it good. I believe that was the last frogfish of the day that I caught. I'm trying to think of the clips that I edited together. I think pretty much everything else becomes a chatterbait jig day, which I don't mind either. But this end of the lake usually produces a few on the frog. So here this is a clip for when I'm just kind of flipping. You can see those shallow weeds. I'm flipping them with the jig. This little guy came out and hit the jig, got it off, of course, right there. So he didn't want a picture, and that was really it for at that point of the day. The shoreline, it was kind of dead. There wasn't much in those weeds, and so I just went out about 8 to 10 feet of water there off the bank and started throwing the chatterbait again and caught this fish. Decent one. I was just kind of fan casting out, in deeper water, and that decent one bit. And then I started working up another shoreline. You can see it's got all those weeds along the edge there. And I was just kind of out in like that 10, 11, 12 feet, just throwing the jig straight out in front of the boat. I did work the chatterbait, nothing, but I was just throwing, I was just throwing that queen tackle half-ounce jig. I had my pigtail trailer had kind of ripped up, so I went and put one of the crawl hors d'oeuvres on from Power Team, that kitchen sink color. And I just started throwing the jig out in front of the boat around the rocks and caught this decent bass. And this is usually an area where I do pretty well with a jig on this lake. And I just kind of throw it out, cast it out in front of the boat, let it hit to the bottom, and then just kind of pop it, drag it, move it slowly back to the boat. And this here fish, even though it's kind of I had walked to the back of the boat and moved one of my rods. It was kind of hanging off the back of the boat, and I had casted my jig out, and then all of a sudden it was like boom, and it was heavy, and I was like, oh boy. So I'm behind the camera right now. You can see the splash. I grabbed the net, and this is the biggest fish of the day by far. I mean, the first one, if he was full, would have probably been the biggest one. This one was the biggest one that as it turned out. This was a solid 4.5 to 5 pound fish. I didn't weigh him. I was thinking about it, but we at this point I can kind of estimate what that 4.5 range. He wasn't 5. I would never say he was a 5 pounder, but I would say he was in that 4 pound class. Nice big bass. Hit that queen tackle jig, the half-ounce jig, and I was just chucking it along the shoreline, 8-10 feet around the rocks, and he nailed it. And so I kept working the jig around this area. You can kind of see the rocks if you look. You can see it's a very rocky area. And I like to work this area with a jig and other baits, and the jig always seems to produce. I think there's a lot of crayfish down there amongst these big boulders. And I was just popping it around, and I caught this other keeper here, another nice largie on the jig. So I get to this end of the lake here where this little cove is, and all of a sudden I've got 2 nice ones. This one is nowhere near as big as the other one, but it's still a nice keeper. And you can see he got that jig, and he hit that one pretty hard. There was no doubt about it that he got it. So then I just started kind of working the area with different baits. I stuck with the jig for a while, then I tried some other stuff. The wind actually picked up at one point here. So I had to, that's why I'm kind of doing this voiceover. And here I just kind of throw the jig out, and you can see I just casted the jig out, if you saw that splash there. And now I didn't feel a bite. That fish just jumped up out of the water. So he hit that jig before I even felt him and jumped up. It was a smallie. It was the one smallie that I got in the boat that day. Not a huge one, but, long and skinny smallie. I was like, oh, that's a smallmouth. And it was a great bite because he just grabbed it and jumped before he even knew he was on there. So I was hoping, this is an area where I tend to catch some smallmouth in the lake. I was hoping I'd get into one. You'll see one that I miss here in a minute, but long and skinny, but it was nice to catch a smallie. And he was eating the jig too. But that was a great bite. He was a cool fish, the way he bit that and jumped up, and he didn't get off, which was nice too. And so now I'm working the back of the lake here. I'm still flipping around with I think I'm still throwing the jig. I believe, actually, that might be the fish that I caught on the Ned. I'm trying to check here. Yeah, I believe that's, yeah, I kind of got these out of order here or this was kind of later on when I came back. I was throwing that little bat from Fat Pack Baits, and I caught that one largely on the Ned. That was after I had gone through and tried some other things. I was throwing the chatterbait, or not the the chatterbait. I was throwing some topwater stuff. I was throwing Neds around. I was throwing the jig around. Then I started throwing a crankbait. And actually, before I caught, that was actually one of the last fish I caught in the day. This guy coming up here, even though he gets off, I figured I'd show it to you. I started throwing that Super Z3 from Megabass. I was throwing it around the rocks, and I had this nice smallie hit it. Unfortunately, as you'll see, he gets off, but I was hoping that was going to really play there as that wind kind of picked up a little bit and all those rocks and everything, but I threw it around, and I only had this one, and he comes flying up again, and he just dances across the water, and you can see the bait pop out, but that was it, guys. So it was a good day, some nice fish, and hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching. Later.